President Donald Trump is preparing to deliver his first State of the Union address. The White House says President Trump will use the theme, "Building a Safe, Strong, and Proud America." Senior White House officials are trying to push the idea the speech will be unifying. The president is expected to tout the recently passed tax bill while also addressing trade, immigration reform, and infrastructure. Earlier, he gave a preview of what he plans to cover.
And it's a big speech, an important speech. We cover immigration, and for many years, many years, they've been talking immigration. They never got anything done. We're going to get something done. We hope it's got to be bipartisan, because the Republicans really don't have the votes to get it done in any other way. So it has to be bipartisan. But hopefully, the Democrats will join us, or enough of them will join us, so we can really do something great for DACA and for immigration generally. But it's going to be, I think, a very important speech on trade. The world has taken advantage of us on trade for many years. And as you probably noticed, we're stopping that, and we're stopping it cold, and we have to. We have to have reciprocal trade. It's not a one-way deal anymore. So we have a lot of things to discuss, and we'll be discussing them, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you all very much. See you tomorrow night.
The speech comes as the Russia investigation intensifies. President Trump has dismissed reports he wanted to fire special counsel Robert Mueller, calling it fake news. Mr. Trump says he looks forward to being questioned. We are also learning about a secret Republican memo which reveals that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein approved the surveillance of a former Trump campaign associate shortly after taking office last spring. It's not clear why the surveillance was ordered. Zeke Miller is a White House reporter for the Associated Press, and he joins me now from Washington. Always great to talk to you, Zeke. Another busy day in Washington. Tell us more about this memo and the impact its release would have on the Russia investigation.
Well, this is a highly classified memo that Republicans prepared by the staff of Representative Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, who's been himself a polarizing figure in all of these congressional Russia probes. You might recall last year he sort of somehow slipped into the White House complex and had these meetings, was given these documents that turned out not to be particularly, he seemed to imply that they were somehow going to be very explosive. They were not. But his staff prepared this secret, highly secret memorandum for that other lawmakers have seen. The White House, the Department of Justice, the FBI have all requested copies of it, and they have not been granted access. Anything involving surveillance of Americans through that FISA process, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, is highly classified, which is one of the reasons why they might not be so willing to share it. But also, Nunes has in the past weaponized sort of classification, the secrecy around it, and sort of been over-promising and then ultimately under-delivering, getting a lot of attention when on the front end saying, I have this classified document that says one thing, and then by the time people it is released or the facts of the matter do come out, it doesn't quite necessarily live up to the hype.
Zeke, we know the DOJ doesn't want this memo made public, but the White House does. What kind of conflict does this create?
Certainly a decent bit of tension on opposite sides of Pennsylvania Avenue there. The Department of Justice is very protective of the FISA process in general, then specifically as well. This is about an ongoing active investigation. Robert Mueller is still looking into this, and Rosenstein is there overseeing that investigation. So potentially releasing that would either jeopardize the investigation, but also more broadly create a precedent that could come back and bite them in the future. The White House wants it public, potentially because they want to prove that. And the promise here, what Nunes says he has, is that the memo would show that Rosenstein relied on some evidence initially in that dossier, the Fusion GPS dossier, that included some salacious details about the president as part of the justification for that FISA warrant. Even if that's the case, it's not the only reason why. And it means that a judge signed off on it. So that's why the White House wants it out there. Do they actually want it out there? They want to say they want it out there. So it may be a different question, but that's sort of the White House position there, at least publicly.
Zeke, after learning that President Trump wanted to fire Mueller, there is a renewed push on Capitol Hill to prevent that. Is there support for a bill to protect the special counsel? It's
a Republican-controlled House, a Republican-controlled Senate, and barring any, sort of imminent action against the special counsel. It's highly unlikely you're going to see anything move forward. And even on the front end, maybe potentially if the president were to take some action against the special counsel, you could see Republicans joining with Democrats to push something through. But it's sort of in the abstract and sort of in the hypothetical. Until the president actually does something, it's very hard to see Republican-controlled Congress actually taking action to protect the special counsel.
Let's talk about tomorrow's State of the Union address. Immigration will be a major topic. The president released a framework of what he wants for an immigration bill. I'm curious, what has the reaction been like from Congress to the proposal? We already are hearing that there are at least 5 Democratic lawmakers that are expected to boycott the State of the Union tomorrow.
Well, that immigration proposal released last week is DOA on Capitol Hill. Republicans don't like it. Democrats don't like it. You might and sort of the White House said they were putting forward a compromise proposal, but in fact, and yes, it might be between where some hardliners are on both sides. That didn't mean it brought anyone to the table and brought any consensus. It was not a consensus-building proposal. And the latest indication, the White House has lost a lot of credibility on that issue on Capitol Hill. The president is certainly going to talk about that proposal about immigration in the State of the Union on Tuesday night. But it seems very unlikely that he's going to have a real true seat at the table in those negotiations. Democrats and Republicans don't really view him as an honest broker on that, nor does he view a lot of certainly Democrats on that issue as well. That said, as part of the deal to reopen the government, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell pledged to bring up an open process on immigration early next month. Will that actually pan out? Will that actually produce legislation that can pass the Senate and then ultimately pass the House and then sign its way to the president? We don't know yet, but certainly, the president sort of laid out a framework, but that framework is not what congressional lawmakers are going to use to craft their own legislation.
Zeke, this is his big shot at showcasing his accomplishments. What else do you expect to hear from the president?
The president talking to White House aides, they've always said, he's never been shy about bragging about his own accomplishments or what he perceives to be his own accomplishments. So he's certainly going to use the opportunity to sort of to bang the drum about a booming economy, about passing the tax reform legislation in December, about taking some limited action on Obamacare, repealing the individual mandate. It's part of that legislation. His deregulatory actions, the decline, ISIS's declining real estate in Syria and Iraq, things like that. He's going to be a bit of a salesman there. That's one of the benefits. Ton of people have done this on both sides of the aisle. The first year, the first, it's not a State of the Union, it's a joint address that he delivered last year was far more of a prospective sort of here's what I'm going to do, and now it's here's what I did for you. As much and this year, it's certainly given the midterm elections, will be a lot more about here's what I did for you than here's what I'm going to do for you next.
Before we let you go, senior White House officials, they're trying to push the idea the speech will be unifying. Given the president's rhetoric on Twitter, can he accomplish that?
He can certainly try to do that for 45 minutes to an hour on one Tuesday night. And we saw that, even the hints of that last year when he delivered that joint address. It was Democrats and Republicans, broadly liked it. They weren't. It was definitely better than their worst fears, and it got a claim on both sides of being sort of a conventional presidential type address. And the president liked it. He liked the feeling that he got after that speech. So that's partly why he's going to adopt that same tone tomorrow. Will that change anything in Washington? Change the underlying dynamics? No, it won't. But for 1 hour, will everyone try to pretend to have this kumbaya moment? Potentially, but it's not going to change anything going forward.
And Zeke, the big news within just the last few hours, the FBI Deputy Director McCabe is stepping down. I think the big question on everybody's mind is why now? Why today? Was he pushed out? What are your sources telling you about this announcement?
Yeah, was he pushed out? Was he not? It's not clear yet. We've been ringing up all of our sources as well. Certainly, McCabe's remaining at that position in the FBI had become a distraction. It's also not uncommon for FBI directors to try to emplace their own deputies of their own choosing. And McCabe was obviously a holdover from Jim Comey, so it's not unusual that he's leaving, particularly as his retirement comes up. But why right now, as sort of the heat and the pressures is amping up? We don't have all of that reporting just yet.
All right, Zeke Miller for us. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.